building the Verrine, we want to keep in mind that we're going to build from the bottom up, and we want to put together a variety of textures and flavors. So we made our streusel, and it's well caramelized and nice and crispy. I'm going to break it into smaller manageable pieces. I don't like things to lie in a too uniform a layer. It just isn't quite as interesting aesthetically. So I like to have it a little bit higher on one side than the other. Just looks a little more organic that way. If I'm going to refrigerate this for longer than a day, I might take my pieces of streusel and toss them in a little melted cocoa butter that will protect the streusel from absorbing any additional moisture from the mousse. Again, the function is to provide some crispness. And then the almond flour that I have in this streusel will make a nice counterpoint to the sweetness of the honey without muting it. And it will pair nicely with the pineapple garnish as well. I'm going to pipe it in, keeping the nozzle just below the surface so that it remains relatively flat, so that I have a nice platform for applying my gelée. The gelée layer will be caramelized honey. It will reflect the flavors I have in the interior of my Verrine. It also protects the mousse from oxidizing or drying out. Because Verrine is done in a glass, I want to think about showcasing colors as well as textures. In this particular dessert, I have monochromatic colors. Everything is a gentle shade of honey. Honey ranges in color from water white to deep amber. This showcases clover honey very nicely, which I selected for using with the mascarpone because the flavors marry one another quite beautifully. But I could have gone in a very different direction. Perhaps I wanted something more earthy. I could have used buckwheat honey and then perhaps matched it with hazelnuts instead of going with something more delicate like almonds. I'm going to take my Verrines now. I'm going to tap them gently. It will help get rid of any creases or air bubbles and flatten out my surface just a little bit more. And then I'm going to freeze these for a few hours so that my honey gelée will stay nice and even on the surface. If my mousse is simply chilled and I put my gelée on and my temperature isn't exactly right, the gelée will sink into the mousse, melting it. It'll become cloudy and it won't be nearly as elegant. Now I'm going to make the pineapple garnish for the top of the Verrine. I elected to do this because the acidity in the pineapple pairs beautifully with the natural acid that's in the honey. It also will help cut through some of the richness and fattiness you get from that mascarpone mousse. I'm going to begin by browning my butter. So I'll allow my butter to melt, boil until it's frothy, and then those milk solids will settle to the bottom of the pan and toast lightly. I'm going to take the contents of the interior of a vanilla bean. Again, the vanilla will tie that honey flavor nicely into the garnish. I really want to babysit this now. I don't want to step away from it or turn my head because it goes from brown butter to black butter very quickly. And at that point, it's going to start taking out bitter tones that aren't going to complement anything. The milk solids are beginning to settle to the bottom. It's beginning to take on a light amber color, similar to the color of honey. Okay, that color is really nice, and it's got the aroma of hazelnuts. And my honey. And I have a little bit of lime juice here too, but I'm going to add that only as needed. This was not as sweet a pineapple as you sometimes get, so I am going to just use a touch of it. I'll taste it and adjust as is necessary, and a little bit of salt. I'm going to let this come back up in temperature. Just got cooled down by the ingredients that I've added, and then I'm going to saute it very lightly. Once the pineapple is just a little bit tender, I'll remove it from the heat and I'll allow it to cool completely before I put it on top of my Verrine. To stop it from carryover cooking, I'll deposit it onto a flat sheet pan, and I'll put it under refrigeration so it can cool down rapidly.